All righty. How is everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. My friends call me Sleuth. Welcome in. All right. We'll get going here in just a few moments. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Good to see you, Metal Mama Michelle. I am having a kick-ass day. I hope you're having a kick-ass day. Susan, hi. Yep, I'm having a great week. I hope you are. Cindy, good to see you. Donna, Robin B, Jody Lynn. Oh, nice. Sure, you're having the time of your life. I don't know if I'm quite ready for that kind of stuff yet, but congrats on that. Welcome in the Unsolved. We will be taking a look at the arrest presser. So we're going to have 5 little video clips we'll be watching, and then we're going to open up the discussion. Here's some of the thoughts I jotted down. Let's see. So it all started with sealing the affidavit. Why? Of course, because others are involved. You have to have a good reason to do something like that. You can't just keep that information private. What do you think this is? Your own private country? You can just do whatever you want, Nick? No, you better have a good reason. Well, he says, you know what? I did have a good reason. I got it signed by a judge. So I think that's going to be the overall theme today. Do you believe that Nicholas McLeland wanted the probable cause sealed to protect an ongoing investigation? That's what I believe personally. And I do believe there are others involved. Or do you believe he was just trying to hide the fact that they're making an arrest and they really don't have much to go on? So they were acting kind of as if, hey, we got a whole lot of stuff here, but I just can't show it to you. But I personally think they have plenty, and I think there's more that we haven't seen. So, but let's just go for the sake of argument. Let's go with what we do know as fact and what was listed in the probable cause affidavit. I agree with that. Unsolved says 110% have info that tells them one or more others were involved or helped facilitate the crime in some way, guaranteed. Well, the first person I think about is Kagan Klein. Think about Anthony Schatz. Think a little bit about JP. Sometimes on and off about Cheyenne and DP, but mostly Kagan Klein and JP. But what does law enforcement mean by others involved? And what do you think? Good to see you, Hiawatha. Let's take a look here. Night Shadow, Rain Dancer, Squatcher. Good to see everybody. Lisa says nobody else involved, in my opinion. And you would be safe in assuming that, honestly. If you're going off all of the evidence and you're not trying to tie information by making leaps and bounds, or at least large steps, walking over puddles or potholes. So, yeah, I mean, you would be safe to assume that a lone wolf walking in his familiar territory, dealing with his own personal issues, decides to, for whatever reason, gain his power back by overpowering two young girls. I mean, you would be safe to assume that, honestly. But that's not what today's discussion is all about. And that's not where I'm at. But I still think you would be safe. And that is very plausible. Good to see you, Beth. What's up, Tattoo? Solar Chef Steph. Pretty sure I messed up on the poll result. I couldn't read one entirely, so I clicked it to see the rest. It counted the click as a vote. You guys hear that? Our results will be skewed. CJK. Melissa Balboa. Jill Moser. What's up? 63 clocks. Frank Sassano. Just saw Keegan's brief he filed. I hope they're not going to end up letting that greaseball out. I don't know. But he is on my list. Let me go through the rest of my thoughts here. So we started with others involved, sealing the affidavit because others are involved. Today is the day, but not the day. That's what Doug Carter says in the presser. Asking for tips after they arrest Richard Allen. And also going back to the presser, you have Tobe and his fire and brimstone approach. Found that interesting. Looking for the boss license plate. I can't remember who sent it to me. If you guys can resend me that image, we'll go ahead and pop it up here on the screen for you. Nicholas McLeland's license plate where it says the boss. He must be a Springsteen fan. Also, Nicholas McLeland speaks a lot about, the court signed the affidavit. He uses that as his weight. He starts pushing that around a lot. Judge signed it. This is backed by a judge, blah, 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 blah. So that brings us to Diener. We all know shortly after he had his quote unquote judge sign, what happened with Diener? He recused himself. Okay, so that's interesting. We can talk about that a little bit. And then another question. Do you believe McLeland? Do you think they're being pressured? Maybe not corruption, but pressured to make an arrest. Maybe somebody that was on their list. And there was a lot of talk about, we're getting the ball rolling and the process moving. So maybe this is some kind of politician's tactic to gain funding or try to break something loose on the case, get a defense team in there, private eyes, and, get it going. But I don't think that they're that reckless. But they could be. What's up, Cindy? Cindy, you have a great name. Cindy Hudson. Mine is more of a channel name. For when all you sleuthers out there get that intuition. Come hang out over here on the Sleuth Intuition channel. What's up, George? Buongiorno. The Unsolved says Keegan won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Nope. Even if he did make a deal, which I think he did. You can't make a deal at the expense of somebody else's justice. So He had to face his victims. Now, his role with the Delphi stuff, that's what we can talk about today. You know, he could still be charged. We saw what recently happened with the Crystal Rogers case, right? They were working with somebody behind the scenes, the father of one of the suspects. And then the second they found that he was not being honest and may have more been responsible for more than what he's letting on, man, that deal disappeared quick. And they slapped the cuffs on him. Same thing could happen with Kagan. What's up, Molly? Anything I like, welcome in. Tom, good to see you, my friend. CJK, Patricia. Hey, Anthony, what's up? How you doing? I am I'm lurking in the shadows today. Let's just say I had a hell of a morning. We have those sometimes, though, I think, right? Caricature, what's up? All right, let's get going here. This is one of about 5 video clips we'll be watching.
Breaking tonight, the first glimpse of answers we've been waiting on for 5 years. Police just announcing an arrest today in the unsolved Delphi murders.
Right now, here at 13 News, we're digging into the man that police arrested, his connection to the case, and also the timeline for when we'll be getting more information from investigators who've been working this case for years. Tonight, we have our entire team covering every aspect for you.
Our Karen Campbell joins us live from Delphi tonight with details on the arrest. We've got Rachel Krause digging into the suspect's last known address, and our Emily Longnecker, who's been following this story since it broke back in 2017, is here in studio tonight for background and insight into this case.
But first, tonight at 5 o'clock, let's get straight to the very latest from Karen Campbell. Karen.
Well, 13 News has learned police have arrested a man by the name of Richard Allen in the Delphi murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. Now, murders that have rocked this community for more than 5 years. Carroll County Sheriff's Office was among the many law enforcement agencies who were involved in this case. And we have also learned that Richard Allen is being held in the White County Jail for Carroll County. Now, the sheriff there told us that he cannot release much more information on this. That is because of a press conference that is planned for Monday. Now, the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office would also not release any more information at this time. We know that Indiana State Police say that they will hold a news conference again announcing an arrest in the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German on Monday here in Delphi. Now, included in that news conference, I mentioned the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, ISP, also the U.S. Marshal Service. So we have been, of course, following the story from the beginning. Now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Rachel Krause, who is also here in Delphi following, again, this breaking news story. And Rachel, what have you learned?
Well, we're starting to learn more information about the man police have arrested in connection to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. Now, Karen, you mentioned the name Richard Allen. Property records from the county show that Richard Allen lives here at this home along Whiteman Drive in Delphi. Friday afternoon, we went out to the door of that home where Allen is believed to live. No one answered. Neighbors living nearby confirmed that Allen is their neighbor. One neighbor who spoke to us off camera tells us he is in shock over the arrest. Throughout the afternoon, many people from around the community and around the state have been driving past Allen's home here, hopeful that at least with his arrest,
Welcome in, everybody.
Police will finally learn more about what.
See his little shed back here? Wonder what was going on back here. I wonder if that was like his own little private area. I was always curious about that. Because the place where they dug up in the fire pit is right here. I think you can kind of see it right there. So the neighbors said when they were serving the search warrant, they dug up a few small holes here. They didn't spend much time. It was almost as if they found what they were looking for quickly. And at the time, the fire pit was kind of buried over. and it was almost as if a garden was planted over the top of it. But once Kathy Allen sold the home, the fire pit was dug back up and made to, be presentable as a fire pit, to help with the cell. So I found that strange. During the arrest, it was a garden, but when they went back to selling the home, it became a fireplace again.
Happened to those girls and why, so the families can finally get justice.
There's a sigh of relief, but it's not over yet. So, he has to be formally charged and go to court before there's true justice. So we just have to hope that they have all the answers and it's going to hold.
Now, we'll be continuing to gather more information throughout the evening
Thanks,
about
Brian.
who Richard Allen is here in the Delphi
Remind me
community.
later. We'll take
But
a look.
now we want to send it on back to the studio where our Emily Longnecker is. She's got more of a deep dive
Thank
on
you,
the
Metal.
Delphi case background and what's kept so many people in the Delphi community pushing for answers and for justice for the past 5 years. Emily?
Thanks, Rachel. This is the day the families of Abby Williams and Libby German have waited for over 5 years to have a suspect in the girls' murders in custody.
It was more than 5 years ago in February 2017 that Abby Williams and Libby German went into the woods near Delphi for a hike and never came home. Their bodies were discovered the next day near the Monon High Bridge where they went walking. That's the same bridge where investigators say Libby captured video and audio of the killer on her cell phone. Until today, there were no arrests in the case, despite thousands of tips in the past 5 years and 2 different sketches of what the suspect could look like. The latest and most accurate, according to investigators, came in April 2019. Now, Indiana State Police sources say there's been an arrest in the case.
And I spoke on the phone today with Abby's mom, Anna Williams. Abby was her only child. She confirmed that investigators had been in touch with her about this latest update. Libby German's grandfather, Mike Patty, said his family was waiting until Monday to comment because they want to hear first what investigators will be saying to the media. I'm told the news conference will be a short one and that investigators will be meeting with the family before it happens. And of course, we'll certainly be there. We have been from the beginning.
Yeah, this is something that the family has been wanting and praying for, a breakthrough in the case and try to figure out some answers about why were these 2 young girls attacked as they were out walking on a beautiful day.
It's a good question. Let's go to this passive aggressive comment here. But think about it. Who is under more pressure in today's world than a CVS pharmacist? Sometimes pressure is perceived. It's kind of like when somebody's drowning in like 2 feet of water. Just put your feet down, bro. So it could be something he was dealing with personally. In his own mind, it was overwhelming. Well, obviously, what else, when you listen to profilers, you always hear them talk about trouble happening spontaneously in the killer's life, right? Or each time that they strike, they're going through a rough patch, loss of a job, divorce, bankruptcy. So that's why we always go back to what was going on with Richard Allen. His daughter moved out 2016, now engaged, right? How's he going to pay for that? That's just a simple stress that probably all fathers are going to go through. Oh, great, financial stress. And then his brother-in-law, who his wife completely adores, this church-going person who takes care of his mother, seems to be well respected in the community. Maybe everything Richard Allen isn't. Passes away. Why couldn't it be you? Type of situation. Well, he's gone. Who's going to take care of mom? Well, Kathy has to step up and take care of mom. Well, where's mom live? 2nd Street in Peru is where she lives. About 1.5 miles from the Klein residence.
of two Delphi, Indiana girls.
One suspect, Richard Allen, is being held, but prosecutors for the very first time are admitting that someone else might be involved in the murders of Libby German and Abby Williams.
Former FBI agent Ross Rice is with us this morning to help us analyze and better understand this case.
Thank you, Metal.
Ross, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. I want to start here with prosecutors wanting to keep the affidavit sealed. Now, normally, they explain why someone was arrested. Walk us through how could unsealing an affidavit compromise a case like this?
Yeah, before we get into this, let me just give a shout out to Jerry. Congratulations on the giveaway. Thank you for emailing me. Miss Thang, thank you for your email. And I had to email Farmer because he's a diva, of course. But then we're still waiting on one, guys. So shoot me that email. I'll give you till January 1st. And then we might have to do another giveaway.
Well, that's a great question, Terrence, and I don't think we'll know the answer to that unless or until the affidavit is unsealed.
Okay, let's keep that in mind. So this guy was unable to answer that question, and his answer was, well, if they're sealing it because others are involved, we'll know more about that when it's unsealed. Okay, so now that it's pretty much unsealed, I'm not seeing anything about that. So are there parts of the affidavit that we don't know about yet? Maybe the part with Kagan Klein. We know that he was on the leaked discovery index. We know he was talking privately with the guys, right? Nick and all the investigators. And when Richard Allen was transferred over to his prison, apparently because of that whole situation, they had to move Keegan Klein. And one thing I found interesting is they moved him closer to Delphi, where he most likely can be closer to investigators. What do you guys think about that?
They obviously have someone or multiple people that they think might have knowledge or involvement in the case, whether it was in planning the murders, helping Richard Allen after the fact. In any case, those individuals will be criminally culpable. It's just a question of who they are and what the evidence is against them. I find it kind of unusual that they would make that request at this point in time. They obviously have enough evidence to charge Allen and go forward with the trial. I just can't envision what the issue would be in maintaining the secrecy at this point.
Speaking of secrecy, let's talk about this, Ross. So there's been a lot of surprises about this case. We didn't know Richard Allen had been arrested until days later, and he even had a court appearance before it was made public. So how unusual is this type of secrecy, and how much of a burden do you think it is on prosecutors to prove that's necessary to protect their case?
Remember that everybody's admitted that it's unusual. Nicholas McLeland said, I understand that it is extremely unusual. But their explanation is because they're looking at other people. Now, you can easily kind of disregard what they said early on about, oh, we think others might be involved, because they don't want to assume that they're not, right? In any investigation, they're going to say, well, we don't have the full picture yet. So we're not just going to say, oh, well, we got our guy and we know everything that happened. No, they're going to say, well, it's a possibility that there's others involved. But that is not what's happening with the Delphi case. In this case, they're saying we believe others are involved. And not only that, we need to go a step above and beyond that. And we need to seal this document because that's how strong our belief is. So this isn't just some random protocol or safeguarding or anything like that. This is something different, something very specific, in my opinion.
Well, that's the argument they made in court yesterday, and we'll see whether the judge supports that or not as far as keeping the affidavit secret. At some point, it's going to be made public. Obviously, when he goes to trial, whenever that might be. As far as how the case has proceeded so far, you're right. It's been very unusual. The arrest was on Friday. The initial appearance, I don't think, was in public until Monday, several days later.
And we know a lot of that had to do with them testing his firearm, his Sig Sauer. Once they got those results back, they were able to go ahead and step it up.
Just a lot of strange circumstances surrounding this case.
You know, when this case first happened, it gained national attention. There's been a lot of focus on it. It's been years. Some people wondered if anything was going to come of this. And here we are now with new evidence, new information. And I'm wondering, as you have watched this progress, as
What's up,
somebody
She-Warrior?
who's an investigator, obviously you don't know exactly what's going on, but what are you getting? What are
I
you
agree.
feeling from hearing what we're now learning about what
Yeah, pay attention
prosecutors
to
may
this.
have against the suspect or suspects?
Well, that's a great question, Sylvia. And if you heard his defense attorneys yesterday after the hearing, they were pretty much dismissing the charges as being unfounded and there was insufficient evidence to support them. Now, obviously, that's a position that defense attorneys are going to take for their client in just about any case. But I hope we don't have a situation here where public pressure forced the prosecution and the police to go forward with a charge that there isn't enough evidence to support. And we're really not going to know that until the charging document is unsealed, which details the probable cause to make the arrest.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns
What's up,
here,
Miss
but
Thing?
we do know the family is being walked through every step of this case by the prosecutors. Ross Rice, always fantastic to talk with you and get your expertise on.
Oh, what do I know? Oh, I know you're passive aggressive. You're coming off like a troll. And if you knew anything, we'd probably already have known about it. How about that?
Erroneous on both counts.
Where'd that come from? What's up, C. Rob? Connie Hill. Shannon Garrison, why do you feel that Kathy is the one who had to step up and care for their mom after John passed away? Because that's what I heard. That's what I was told. And why would it be Richard Allen? Why would he go take care of his stepmother? I don't see him doing that. Maybe he helped, but it's my understanding that her brother John passed away, who passed away September of 2016, just before the crime. Could have been the catalyst. I think it was. I think that's what set everything in motion. That's what gave him his free time. That's what separated him from his wife. And that's what connected him with the Anthony shots. All those things happened after his brother-in-law passed away, in my opinion.
We have an
What's up, Jamie? How you doing? Yeah, it doesn't make them kill. So I think something that even a normal person would find like agonizing, like stress, the stress is just agonizing. But they can push through. Nothing new, life is filled with ups and downs. Well, now let's say somebody's been coddled their entire life. They've been living a comfy life under the watchful eye of like a mom type wife. I've seen those kind of relationships, and they do happen where it's kind of strange, maybe even a lot of secrets going on both sides. But I think there might be a big part. I think this has a lot to do with mental health. Sorry. When it comes to Richard Allen, I don't think he was able to handle that. He may have already been fighting his demons. I mean, something's up at that shed. I would like to know more about it. What'd they find in there? What does his family have to say about it? Was it off limits? The BTK had a shed. He used to keep his trophies there. I think he buried them underneath the shed. Nedra Griffin, how are you? Says, I think his motivation was sexual. I think he went there to attack them. Don't investigators always say that there might be other people involved? Yeah, we addressed that. So I said it's probably standard to assume that, or to assume that you don't know everything about the crime, right? And that there could be other people. So that's one thing, but it's a completely separate thing to seal a probable cause affidavit claiming that you believe others are involved or that Richard Allen did not act alone. Do you see the difference there? What's up, missing and unsolved? Richard Allen strikes me as a quiet person who would not open up to anyone about personal problems. He bottled them up. Spoke with a couple people that grew up with Richard Allen. They all said the same thing. Quietest guy they had ever met. We're going to hear in this one of these upcoming videos, we're going to hear from somebody that knew Richard Allen.
We have an accomplice. As the suspect in the Down the Hill murder case makes his first court appearance, a prosecutor makes a stunning revelation. We believe Richard Allen is not the only actor involved in this. The news came at a bail hearing today as prosecutors said information about the case should remain sealed because the investigation is ongoing.
Today was sort of the most perhaps strident statement from law enforcement or the prosecution about the possibility that more than one person is involved.
Allen, who worked at the local CVS drugstore, is accused of murdering best friends Abby Williams and Libby German on this country trail outside Delphi, Indiana. His lawyer says people shouldn't rush to judgment.
Our client, very emotional, looked us in the eye. He said, "I am not guilty."
In a handwritten letter to the judge, Allen says his wife has been forced to immediately abandon employment for her personal safety. She has had to abandon our house for her own safety.
Thank you, Daisy. Looks like we do have a sponsor for today's live stream. Super sticker by Daisy. Thank you so much. So somebody was gifted a membership by Metal Mama. And we're getting hooked up with super stickers. Thank you, guys. What's up, Tech Death? Chris Owen says, if they can say who, I wonder if they'll at least narrow it down by saying who isn't involved at least. Well, I haven't been able to follow up on this, but shortly before Richard Allen's defense team was relieved of their duties and that memorandum in support of the Franks motion was leaked publicly, it was around that time. Wait, hold on. Just got an email. What the hell is this? Hey, what's up, ATS News? Welcome in. Says, I agree, others involved on some level. Well, you have some people commenting, Richard Allen was a small guy. He couldn't have done that. I mean, I think it's possible. Not much bigger than Richard Allen. And I've been in a few brawls with grown men. Put a knife in somebody's hand and turn those men into young teenage girls. I don't see any issue arising for Richard Allen as far as pushback. I'm assuming there was some kind of a chase, but other than that, with that bladed weapon and knowing exactly where to put it, and I do believe they teach you that, right? In basic training, to go for the jugular. I think that's where both girls were hit. So I don't understand. So why would you be sent to a Lafayette hospital after police come to your door? What kind of hospital is this? Is this a rehab? Is this a mental facility? The heck? What happened? What are the details?
To quote, keep the peace. If he's found guilty,
peace.
his old neighbors say he deserves the maximum punishment.
So I wonder if he was kind of running around acting all crazy or something. They're like, dude, we need to check you into a hospital. Max Lewis. Good old Max. Big Worm says middle age crisis causes divorce, maybe an OWI, not this.
He gonna cry in the car. Cry in the car.
Good to see you, Beach Fair. Yeah, I don't know how related that is. Shanny Garrison. Oh, let me go back to that comment. You said you know the family. Says thank you because I know the family and I know who takes care of her. However, that's partially true that Kathy does help at times. How about between the time my theory, between September of 2016 and January of 2017, there was some kind of an inappropriate relationship that took place. So, in this theory, she would have to be helping out quite a bit during that time. Thank you for the comment, Shannon. Now, let me go back down to your next one. Richard Allen growing up was very quiet. See? So if Shannon is being truthful about who she is and what she knows, she's also stating that he was very quiet, stayed to himself, but was polite and friendly. Nothing ever stood out about him. That was odd. Big Worm. I have 7.5% faith in the legal system. That's generous, you know? I think that's why it's good to kind of do your own digging. As long as you can be self-aware and do your own self-checking when it comes to confirmation bias and things like that. And be okay with being wrong sometimes, you know, if not most of the time. Sometimes you only need to be right one time for it to really matter. All right, so now we are going to watch the presser. As you guys comment, we can stop and go. But there's going to be most of the talking points will come up during the presser that I have listed here. And we'll get going here in just a few on that. What's up, Harvey? Says, I believe investigators were digging up a shed key near the fire pit. A shed key, huh? What would they need a shed key for? I'll just cut that bastard right off the door. Maybe there was a lockbox or something. The Unsolved says only 8 likes with 221 people watching. Can't be. We can't be in Scrubsville like that. No, I'm showing 96 and they're climbing. So if you guys could hit the thumbs up. And if anybody has any ideas why Jeremy Clinton and the U.S. Marshals were involved and why the FBI wasn't there. And I don't see the FBI not being involved, but I would see them handing it off. Is there a reason that that might have happened? I don't know. I always speculated that them saying that they thought others were involved in the U.S. Marshals. I thought maybe there was a manhunt going on. Maybe there still is. Yeah, but wrestling with a grown man who's like a foot taller than you and 60 more pounds heavier than you, and you're able to fight him off. Like, come on, man. You say you work outdoors. Either you're, well, no, I don't think it was the big worm who said that. Somebody else said that. Sorry. Anybody who says that Richard Allen could not have committed this crime alone, I just don't think they're really thinking it through. Or they've just never ever been in anything physical. They've never been on a football team with a 5'5", 190-pound guy, you know, who's knocking down the 6'5" guys, you know. You really got to look at everything, you know. The dude seems short and stocky, not just short and petite. You know what I mean? And honestly, he probably, the way I see it going down, he only had to move Abby. I have a feeling she was attacked first. So it's not like he was picking up Libby, who I believe was 190 to 200 pounds. Now, I can see that being difficult, you know, trying to move that weight through water or uphill, or even trying to drag that kind of weight. That is a little more difficult to believe, but not impossible. But I don't think that's what happened. I think that he attacked her right where she was found. He hit her to the throat. She grabbed her wound, touched the tree, fell back, and her arm went upward. That's when he left, tried to figure out what he was going to do, heard people coming. Now, I cannot explain the sweater at all. And we're going to talk about that later. So I don't know if he just put that on for that's the reason I think he had a personal relationship with her. You know, he was thinking, oh, it's going to get cold, even though she's passed on. In his mind, he's thinking she's going to be cold. Only a man who is just completely consumed with regret is going to think like that, right? Like, I don't want her to be cold. Like, man, you just killed this person. Why would they be cold? Because they're basically in shock still. So that's what I'm chopping it up to, guys. He was in shock. Didn't want to leave the sweater and didn't want her to be cold. I think there's a personal relationship to Abby. I think that was the motivation, an inappropriate relationship. And Libby, from what I hear from Becky, was a protector. You know, she wasn't a pushover either. What's up, Mike? Yeah, this one does feel wrong, Mike. And I think the reason why is I do think that others are involved. And they can't have people on social media talking about an unspent bullet being found at the crime scene and not arrest Richard Allen. Because the only way they stick these charges to him is with that evidence. You know, no pun intended, but it is, you know, it's a smoking gun, in my opinion. He puts himself on the trails, and that unspent bullet puts him at the crime scene. That's going to be very powerful. And I think there's going to be a lot of time spent arguing over that during trial if they make it, which I don't think that they will. What's up, Sparky? Hope you're feeling better. Sparky was recently bitten by a dog. So you guys, if you could send her some good vibes. Yeah, Mexico, Indiana. It's right there by Denver, Indiana. Jamie says Richard Allen's old defense team is one of the largest I have ever seen. If you are a certain group member, you had total access. Hold on, guys. We got a super chat here from Tom. Thank you, Tom. Can't wait for the details to clear up all the speculation. And there's a ton of unknown evidence that will surface at trial. Still think they knew early on. Yeah, I haven't given that up either. I think it is very possible. We are gathering information and putting some things together as far as Richard Allen's Facebook. We got a good pile of evidence, but nothing solid yet. So, but there's a lot to go. I'm not ready to show it yet. I think I'll probably get together with Frank Meister on that. So I'll shoot Frank an email. Maybe we'll do something together on that. But it does appear that Richard Allen had a Facebook, and it was deleted right around the time of the New Direction presser. Boston. Erroneous. Hey, what's up, Renee? With the super sticker. Thank you. I didn't catch that one. Sorry about that. Appreciate you. What's up, Brad, from outside of the grid? Yeah, it's kind of troubling, to be honest, Big Worm. Shannon's asking, wasn't it said that ISP told the FBI they were no longer working the case? No, but there was an issue with the Marathon gas station footage. It was the task of the FBI to go recover that, and somehow the hard drive got damaged. And they believe there could have been some footage of the killers captured on there. Not only that, they blamed the FBI for that, and then also the lost tip narrative. They said it was something that the FBI did wrong. The FBI came back out with their public statement about the matter and said, hell no, we didn't. We followed the protocol to a T. And then we found out it was Doolin who dropped the ball. So yeah, there was a little bit of dishonesty there. It's a good point. Thank you, 63 Clocks, gifting Sleuth Intuition membership. Tom N. Super Chat. I can't wait to see that show. Yeah, we're working on it. We are working on it. We're making some leeway. Fig actually has some information. I'm going to reach out to him too. So if you have information and you want to participate in that, or you want to, if you have anything to share as far as Richard Allen having a Facebook, I guess we can ask Shannon. Shannon Garrison, what do you know about Richard Allen having a Facebook? Do you know anything about that? It'd be nice to clear that up. Not that we can verify what you're saying is true, but I don't see why you would be. I mean, there are trolls and things like that, but I don't see why you would be lying about that. You're not being very trollish. You have a truth-telling style. What is up, Todd? Richard told both girls to turn around and undress, killed Abby, then killed Libby. When a grown-up has a gun, children comply. He killed Abby from behind quickly, no scream. Near the water, I'm assuming that's why there was no blood. I can agree with that, Todd. And one person could have easily have done it. I just don't believe. I believe that there was more there who helped. Maybe even a combination of younger and older folks. Yep, exactly, Brian. Yesterday was her birthday. Caricature says, what kind of a relationship with Abby? But her mom didn't know him. Never thought of that, but makes sense for addressing her. I don't know. Anna hasn't come forward about that. When Richard Allen was arrested, she didn't. The only comment she gave was that she was aware that he had been arrested. I'm almost certain that if anybody knew that each other, it was Richard Allen and Anna, because she worked in the bar scene. I think she was a waitress for a long time, and I think she may have worked at a couple of different places. So if anybody knew each other, it was them. Not to mention they had mutual friends. This Mr. Nebergall, and he was busted October of 2006 before the murders, shortly before the murders, at throwing an underage party with 18-year-old minors. And he also got I don't know if he got officially charged. He may have made a deal or whatever, but he was charged with resisting arrest also and fleeing the scene while drunk. Nedra's asking, do you think Richard Allen will take a plea? 100% I do. And it'll be at that point we hear a little bit about maybe Keegan Kline and a third party. Missing unsolved. I wonder if Kathy Allen was asked what Richard Allen's behavior was like that very day after he came home. If he is guilty, he must have acted on edge. How can you be the same after doing something like this? Yeah, we heard Doug Carter say that because of how different you are since the murders. So I don't know how that fits in with Richard Allen. But let's go ahead. We are at about the 1 hour mark. So let's go ahead and get started with this. This video is 21 minutes and 47 seconds.
Good morning. My name is Sergeant Jeremy Piers, Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Lafayette Post. I'd like to thank you all for being here and thank the Delphi United Methodist Church for allowing us to use their facility.
About a minute left. So, I mean, it's clear they believe others are involved, right? See what else. But who are these other folks? We know Keegan Kline created the Anthony Shots account. Whoever was using it stated they were supposed to meet Libby that day. Another unusual character, we had an interview with the person named JP. Now that we've heard the details, there was an old video I found of him. Let's take a look. I don't know if this means anything or makes it more suspicious, but now that we know how the girls died and that there was missing blood, I found this very interesting.
I don't know how to say this in any nicer way, but I'll slit your fucking throat and watch you bleed out. I'll drink your fucking blood. I don't know who the...
Okay, so we've spoken with this gentleman. He has been interviewed with law enforcement, apparently failed the polygraph test. Told me personally that he was at the trails from 3:30 to around 4 and possibly there the day before on the 12th. So knowing that the girls were stabbed and that there was possibly some missing blood, They kind of hint to that in the memorandum. You know, once again, we can't really put too much on that, but I think with those type of details, it might be accurate, right? Especially with those folks who have actually seen the crime scene photos. I myself have not, but they state there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of blood with Abby. So hearing that, does this mean anything?
I don't know how to say this in any nicer way, but I'll slit your fucking throat and watch you bleed out. I'll drink your fucking blood. I don't know who the. I don't know how to say that.
So I don't know. We can go to Keegan Klein's alibi. What does he say? He was talking to Barbara McDonald while he was locked up. They had an interview. He says, and that was not you? He says, no, 100% no. They have my GPS the whole day. And how do they have your GPS the whole day? From your phone? He says, well, from my phone, yeah. Okay, they can. I don't know how they did it, but yeah. And he's shown me. He's shown me that day all my GPS locations. You must know what I mean. So that's his alibi, his phone. Well, that was also JP's alibi.
And that's the thing, is because I emailed him what I was doing that day. I emailed him my timeline. I've allowed Google to track me since I got on the internet. I've had Google Maps with precise location on. That way you can track my every move, because I don't know about other people. I forget, where I was on certain days.
Okay. So same alibi, but is this what they're talking about? All these other people that could possibly be involved. We know Keegan Klein was trying to blame his father. We know that he was apparently, during the time of the murders, he was connected to a Wi-Fi router of his of a relative. Now that relative is connected to JP. Not only that, JP's father dated the Klein's neighbor. He knows her kids, knows them, claims he doesn't know Keegan Klein, but that could be a lie, right? So there's that connection. Then not only from JP, his father lived up the street from Richard Allen. And this is a place where he spent a lot of time. So I don't know if it's worth looking into that kind of stuff. What does Nicholas McLeland mean by other people? Does he mean that somebody helped plan it? Or is he talking more like a family member, like Kathy, or a friend, or his other brother-in-law? Did somebody help him cover up the crime? We know that the fire pit was buried, but there was a garden put over the top of the fire pit, which was then dug up during the search warrant. And then a few months later, when Kathy put the home up for sale, they redug up the fire pit, put cinder blocks around it, and said, hey, look, this house comes with a fire pit. So what is that all about? Is that what he's talking about? What do they mean? So let me close down this poll real quick, and then we'll get out of here in about 5-10 minutes. And I don't know why my thumbnail isn't coming up here. That's weird. It's got like my true crime logo thing on there. The hell's up with that? I have to fix that. All right. So the poll question was, why was the PCA sealed when Richard Allen was arrested? And we're going to finish up with that. Actually, we don't have time. If you guys want to go watch my video, I do read the probable cause affidavit. It's actually an objection to the defense suppressing the probable cause affidavit. So there's going to be a lot of information in there if you want to go back over it and see if there's anything there Why they might have had it sealed. Let me know if you find anything. The question was, why was the PCA sealed when Richard Allen was arrested? 52 of you believe, or I'm sorry, 10% say no evidence. So Nicholas McLeland was trying to hide that fact, that he had nothing. You know, we have so much, but we can't show you. When in actuality, they had very little. 10% of you said it can't seal the PCA without a reason, right? And I think that's what Richard Allen's previous defense team was arguing. We'll see if his new defense team follows up. 28% were undecided, but the majority of you, 52%, said others are involved. And that's where I'm at. All right, so just a couple lingering things I wanted to discuss. And we did touch on the sweater. I think I've come to the terms that it was something weird going on with Richard Allen or one of the killers. And there's definitely a personal relationship between that person and Abby for them to go out of their way and put this hoodie on her. It was some kind of weird, guilt-ridden, panic type situation, in my opinion. Then something else we touched on recently on my community page was how easily Richard Allen could be the young and old sketch, right? These photos were taken the same day in 2016, and I have the video. I'll show it to you. So let's say he's standing on the bridge. He no longer has his hood over his head, and he's looking around now. No shade from the trees, just the sunlight blaring down on his face, just as you see here. Now, she wasn't trying to remember him, right? And when he's wearing the stupid little beanie with the small brim, right? They said, oh, some kind of weird painter's hat. But don't focus on the hat. We just know it has a small bill. All right, well, his little beanie has a little bill on it. I think this is what he's wearing. So if he's looking something like this, and you go back to remember, it's curly hair, right? But really, it could easily have just been this. You know, you're not going to stare at the guy and be like, okay, he's got blue eyes. Okay, he's 5'5", curly hair. No, you're not going to do that because you're not looking for a killer. You're out for a walk. You're minding your own business. You're dealing with your own BS for the day, right? And there's just some guy standing there, and you're like, well, there's a guy. Now I'm going to continue on with my walk. Sometime later, you're asked, okay, well, what does that guy look like? I think he had curly hair, tiny little nose, you know. So now you take away the light, maybe put a hoodie over his head, and with his head down, you see the old man chin. You can even see his facial hair a little bit. Remember, guys, same day. Tom N with the super chat. DC just said, I felt like I've known for a long time. I think he said, I felt like I've known them for a long time. I think he was referring to the victim's family. And because it's followed by something like, I never would have expected it to be their day also. Andy says, gotta ask, why are you so against Richard Allen? You mean the suspect that's been arrested for the murder of 2 girls? Innocent until proven guilty? You kissed Patrick Westfall's ass? What?
You can read this. You can read this.
How about that? Take the trash out. Shannon says, Cindy Hudson, I'm absolutely not a troll, but I understand the thinking behind that. There are a lot of... Yeah, we just saw one. Maybe we just booted one out of here. Exactly, and that's why they got to go to trial, CJ. I agree with you. Vicky says, good to see you, Vic. Did Kathy low-key violate the gag order by texting Snay that she thinks he's 100% innocent and that she told him no plea deals? I don't know. I don't know what the stipulations are. I don't know what the guidelines are for the gag order. Because I know there's a lot of people talking, right? At some point, Nicholas is going to have to talk to the media and say probably those same things. I think he's not innocent, so it's not really detailed information about the case. So I don't know. It's a good question for an attorney. Anna says the pieces don't all fit in for me concerning Richard Allen's presumed guilt. I'm on the fence at this time. For me, it's the unspent bullet. I would like to see that argument. And I don't want to assume that they have anything else, right? I mean, I'm sure that they do, but I'm just not going to, I'm not going to build from that. I'm not going to subscribe to that or build from that point of view. Oh, we have this photo. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Okay, look how young he looks right there. He's a man of many faces. Okay, so there's young Richard Allen, head up, sunlight in the face, right? Now, right there, look how old he looks. Out of the light, head somewhat down. You can see his facial hair and his weird neck. But you guys be the judge. I'm allowed to have my opinion. And I definitely like hearing yours. Sleuth's good images keep them trolls triggered. I love it. Yeah, anything that goes against their narrative is crazy. I want my narrative to be challenged. Let's challenge these thoughts. Let's learn something from it, if at the very least. I think so, Daisy. All right, guys, we are going to get out of here. I appreciate it. If you could please hit the like button on the way out. If you're not subscribed, hit that bell. If you are subscribed, consider becoming a member. We do stay active. And replay crew, let me know what you think. Leave a comment. We'll get back to you. Let us know what you think about today's live stream. Let's go to some comments. Western Skies. That was a great thanks. No ass kissing. Yeah, I thought I did pretty good on that interview, guys. Tried not to be biased. Tried not to intimidate my guest, and I didn't share in any of the beliefs. So I think I did good. So whatever. Plus, when somebody's willing to talk, we're going to listen, right? It's all about information and how to put it together. What's up, Periwinkle? Yep, he got the boot. He got the boot.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. Your opinion, man.
Know what I'm saying? The unsolved Snay, yet another person who has no business involved in this stuff. The way he treats others. Hey, each to his own, right? There's people out there that don't like the way I do things. Are you talking about this one? Yeah, he's not big. He's not tall, but look, he's pretty stocky. I wouldn't compare him to this guy because this guy only has one arm. He's badass at pool, apparently. But he's larger than all these men here. As far as the width of his shoulders, right? Remember, he would have been fighting against two young, inexperienced girls who may have never even been in a fight, let alone a full-on assault by somebody who's trained by the military. All right, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to go over. I did want to play the probable cause affidavit, but it's really long. I just don't have time for that. But I'm sure we will get together again real soon, guys, and have another discussion. So thank you, everybody who showed up and participated. Don't worry about them trolls. Nobody believes me. Everybody's listening to Sleuth. He's so stupid. Oh, man. Imagine being that person. What's up, Loopsy? Where did the picture of the group around them come from? Facebook group. Somebody who was hanging around at JC's, playing at some of the pool tournaments with Richard Allen and his wife, Kathy. Let's see. The Unsolved says, not one person has offered a single rational explanation for the unspent round. No. The only thing I can think of, my two theories were No, there's 3. Of course, him running up on the girls, racking another round into the chamber once he caught up to Libby, because I'm pretty sure if the bullet was found there, and I believe that Libby fell at the crime scene when she was killed. So I'm assuming that's where the bullet dropped, was after he chased her. Intimidation. Right? Or after he was done doing what he was doing, he needed to tuck the gun away somewhere. You know, maybe he needed to conceal it, tuck it in his pants, or something where he didn't want to accidentally shoot himself, right? So, or if he was to be, maybe he thought he would be apprehended. He didn't want to have a loaded weapon on him. He didn't want any mistakes to happen. So he just tucked it away. And in that process, he pulls the hammer back, ejecting the shell, not thinking, right? He's all flustered. He's paranoid. He's panicked. He's guilt-stricken. He's doing all this weird stuff at the crime scene. He hears people yelling for the girls. He hears people on the bridge. Just doesn't seem like the time for a ritual. Seems more like a time to leave your signature, your own personal, whatever you got to do, document the crime, put the hoodie on, whatever it is that this personal killer felt like they needed to do, is what they were doing, and then they're out of there. What's up, Mustang? Yeah, definitely don't believe that unsolved. If they match that bullet to his gun, I mean, I'm pretty good. I'm almost convinced. I would be convinced at that time. I would say guilty. And that's me assuming that they got a handful of other items that we most likely haven't heard of. CJK says, I thought it has been said that Allen was in the Guard. Yeah, he was in the National Guard. All right, guys, that is all my time. Thank you once again. Appreciate all of the support from you, Metal, Daisy, Renee, Tom. Good to see you, my friend. Be safe out on those streets. Diamonds and Mike. Appreciate you guys. On that note, we are going to get out of here. Thank you again, Shannon Garrison, for sharing your information. No real way to vet it, but I do feel like you are being honest. So thank you again for sharing. And everybody else, have a great rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.